Today's talk will be about Jacob Judah Leon. He was born to converso parents who returned openly to Judaism in Amsterdam. He was educated at the city's Ets Haim school and began his career as a teacher. He appears as a rabbi in Hamburg and Middelburg, and then um, in Middelburg he started building his model of the Temple of Solomon. In the mid 1640s, he was back in Amsterdam publishing and exhibiting his model of the temple and teaching at Ets Haim. This, at least, is the outline. What lies behind it is more complicated and far more interesting. Something about the picture to the right. This is a poster published by Jacob Judah Leon, who is uh, um, present here with his image. You see the 12 tribes of Israel surrounding the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, my cursor doesn't seem to be working. Yes. So there are certain unclarities surrounding the life of Jacob Judah Leao or Leon. He himself wrote that his father was a Spanish Jew, but research points to Portugal. Who is right? The man who should know, or the sources? Some called him a rabbi with confidence, as if the title were firmly earned and formally bestowed. Others hesitated, pointing out to the thin documentary trail. Biographers differ on the place where he was born, and I shall add to the confusion. Daniel Levi de Barrios wrote that Jacob was a student of Isaac Uziel, and we have to believe him on his word. But he wrote decades later about this. Anyway, Jacob's youth overlapped with Uziel's stint in Amsterdam, so it's possible. When precisely did Jacob move back from Middelburg to Amsterdam? Was Jacob ever in London? Why do we know so little about his wife, except for her given name, Rachel, and her burial in London? I shall bring some clarity, but of course add some new mysteries. And let's begin with the parents. It has long been known that his father was Abraham de Leao and his mother Abigail Judah Leao. Their Portuguese names are also known, among others, from the above manuscript, the Genealogia above. Those names were Simão de Leao and Felipa da Fonseca, parents of Ishak and Jacob Judah Leao. And this manuscript is a bit obscure, for here it mentions the Lopo da Fonseca and Beatriz Henriques. It mentions their 5 children and it ends with a few tildes. Isabel da Fonseca and below that Ambrosia da Fonseca. And they are prima segundo, or cousins once removed, from the 5 children mentioned up above. So how the family relation is, we don't know. But Isabel da Fonseca is interesting because she was the mother of Chacham Ishak Aboab. And Ambrosia da Fonseca had two daughters. One is Joanna and the other is Filipa. Casada com Simão de Leao, pais de Ishak e Jacob Judah Leao. Now we have a Portuguese name. And if you have a Portuguese given name, one useful place to start is the index to the Portuguese Inquisition known as the Livro dos Homens. This is an index organized first by given name and then within each given name arranged chronologically. So you're not searching by surname, but by first name and then by date. The entries point you to either full processos, meaning the actual inquisitorial trial files, or to the cadernos dos promotores, which are the prosecutor's notebooks. And occasionally, the index also refers to a separate volume that dealt with the Jews in Amsterdam. Unfortunately, that particular book is lost. One of the names that you see listed here is João de Leão. So I pulled his processo and checked the dates given in the index. And when I went to those dates, I found exactly what the index pointed to. A declaration that João de Leão made to officials of the Inquisition. And he said, and I'll tell it to you in English, he has the following brothers and sisters, all of whom are in Flanders and Amsterdam, where they went with their mother about 4 years ago. Except for one, who is the eldest of them, named Simão de Leão, married to Felipa da Fonseca, a new Christian. With her, he went from Tavareda to Seville, and from Seville to France, and from there to Flanders, between brackets, meaning Holland. And it has been about 20 years since they left here, without ever returning afterward to live in this kingdom or in lands subject to it. And as far as he knows, without returning here. This is a remarkably revealing text. In just a few sentences, it sketches the life of Simão, later known as Abraham de Leão, before his arrival in Amsterdam. We learn that over a period of 20 years he did not return to Portugal. That means he must have left before 1598. He spent some time in Seville, then moved on to France, and eventually made his way to Amsterdam. Notably, there's no mention here of Hamburg, and that strongly suggests our Jacob was not born there. The text also confirms something important. When Jacob Jehuda Leon described his father as a Spanish Jew, he was not fabricating anything. Simão had in fact lived in Seville in Spain. João also lists all of his brothers and sisters, and I'll mention just two of them here. Maria de Leão, married to Manuel Lopez Núñez, known as David Israel Núñez, and Manuel Lopez de Leão later became Jacob Judah Leon, both in Amsterdam. And both had come to Amsterdam counting back from 1618 and 1614. So there were two persons with the name Jacob Judah Leão. This has led to confusion, though not during their lives. Everyone knew who was who, and in the sources they are definitely indicated. The real confusion arose later among some of Rabbi Jacob's biographers, who blurred the distinction between the two. Abraham Yehuda Leao appears in the Amsterdam records on April the 1st, 1616. On that date, he is recorded as paying promesas. And on May 21, there's a note that says that he paid for his son to say the Haftarah. What's significant here is that the family surname is already fixed as Yehuda Leao or Yehuda Leao. And the years that follow, we see different spelling variations, but they always revolve around these names, these same two elements, Yehuda and Leao. Beyond that, I was able to trace Abraham in a number of scattered sources, mainly burial registers and tax records, covering the period 1614 to 1623, and then again from 1629 to 1632. Then he is not often mentioned anymore in the Amsterdam records, except late in life, to which we shall return later. The only source for Jacob's spell in Hamburg are his own words. We can't prove this with contemporary records, nor can we refute it. For the period of 1600 to 1650, with lots of gaps of years, we only have lists of names, and they do not have the name Judah Leao. Around 1639, Jacob left either Hamburg or Amsterdam for Middelburg. Why? We can't be completely certain. It may have been connected to the merger of the three Portuguese congregations into a single community in that year. It may also have followed the death of his first wife, also in 1639, and maybe both factors played a role. In Middelburg, he became the first rabbi of the house synagogue of Paulo Giacomo Pinto, and you see his house and the picture on the right. And now, this is a good moment to clarify something important. The word rabbi does not always mean the same thing. In Portuguese Jewish communities, rabbi usually means a teacher, someone who teaches Torah or instructs students. It does not automatically imply formal communal leadership. In fact, they were never called rabbis, but either Rabbi, Rabbi, or Robi, but never rabbi. Uh, Outside Portuguese Jewish circles, however, when people hear the word rabbi, they typically think of the official religious head of a community. In Portuguese terms, that role would more properly be called a chacham. And if we don't make that distinction, misunderstandings are almost guaranteed. In the Amsterdam context, Rabbi Jacob Judah Leon was a teacher at Ets Haim, never a chacham. But the evidence suggests that his main activity in Zeeland was not primarily rabbinic work. Instead, it seems to have been his collaboration with the Middelburg theologian Adam Boreel, who also provided him with financial support. Boreel belonged to a broader Protestant movement that was convinced the Messiah would return in the near future, ushering in a thousand-year reign. As a result, there was more interest in forms of Judaism that were close to the biblical model, and especially in the Temple of Solomon, which they expected would one day be rebuilt. In it was in Middelburg that he truly began on his literary work also. He published books, pamphlets, posters. In other words, Middelburg marks the beginning of both projects that would later define his reputation, his writing, and the physical restructuring of the Templo model form. The armory in the book in the middle, the coat of arms, is not his. It's a coat of arms of the province of Zeeland, in which Middelburg lies. And on the left, you see a detail of the cover on the book on the right, and you see that he was more or less obsessed with coats of arms with lions in them, which is a play on his name. One wonders what the double-headed eagle does there, though. Let me come back to the confusion between the two men named Jacob Jehuda Leon. That confusion has probably persisted longer than it should have. Probably also because of a burial record in the Ets Haim database on Dutch Jewry. This is a burial card from that database. The card is filed under Jacob Yehuda Leon, the uncle, and it lists 3 wives. The first wife, Rachel, is correct. She was buried in 1616. The second marriage gives the correct date, but the wrong name for the bride. And the third marriage does not belong to Jacob the uncle at all. It belongs to our rabbi, Jacob. So the database entry effectively merges 2 different individuals into one, and that has misled greater researchers. Now let's look at the burial card for Sarah de Leeuw, who is presented as the wife of Uncle Jacob here. The card again refers to her marriage in 1618 and cites its source. And if you look up the source, the name isn't Sarah at all. It's another Rachel. It says Manuel Lopez de Leon and Rachel de Leon appeared before the city magistrates and declared that they had been married according to the rites of their faith for 4 years. So this was after the fact. And 4 years since this record was done in the year 1622. The marriage took place in 1618, which is 2 years after the first Rachel died. Let's go to the marriage band of Jacob and Rachel Furtado. You see here Jacob de Leeuw from Bordeaux, widower of Sarah de Leeuw, living in the Midden-Moddersteeg, or Mid-Mud Ally, which sounds a lot more poetic, and Rachel de Leeuw from Amsterdam, 23 years old. But she is not a de Leeuw because she is assisted with her father Jacob Furtado. And Jacob de Leeuw signs as Jacob de Leeuw, and his wife as Rachel de Leeuw, after her husband, I presume. In the margin, you see known with the orphan chamber. I couldn't find anything in the orphan chamber, which is a pity, but maybe someday it will come up. But if you wonder where the middenmoddersteeg or midmud ally was, it's here near the Sint Antoni sluis. The Sint Antonius sluis down below ends in the river Amstel. Now, how do you know that the marriage ban was Jacob the Yehudalion, the rabbi? And to prove this, we need a signature that is unquestionably his and compare it with the one under the marriage ban. And his signed appointment as rabbi of the Portuguese Jewish community gives us that signature. And you see it in the middle here. And it's a double confirmation because in the same year, Rabbi Jacob's uncle, also Jacob Yehuda Leon, was serving as a parnas and signed the same document in the row of names at the bottom right under the nomination. I enlarged his signature up above and I repeated the signature of the marriage ban, and you may see that this is a totally different signature, but the two below look alike. There are the same curls, both signatures are underlined, and the form of the letters are the same. Uh, in other words, they must be the same persons, but there's more evidence about which later. Uh, this is Jacob's appointment as teacher at Ets Haim, and it has the conditions under which he is appointed. He would hold the title rabbi only, with a seat on the teacher's bench in the synagogue. His fixed annual salary of 400 guilders included no promise of increase. He could not claim a raise or additional titles or improved seating in the synagogue. And his duty was to teach Gemara, grammar, composition of themes, and written and spoken Hebrew. By the way, all the appointments of teachers, chazans, chachams, butchers, and other personnel of the synagogue can all be traced from 1639 on. If you have the name of a rabbi or chacham, you can find his appointment and look what his conditions of appointment were and the salary. And here's the proof that I promised. The children of one Jacob Furtado declared to have opened the last will of Jacob Jeshurun Furtado. And these children are Isaac Furtado, Rachel Furtado married to Jacob Judah Leal, and two others. And it's signed by Jacob and Judah Leal, and we recognize his signature. So I put these three all together. Above is the one from the marriage ban, sorry. And below that is the signature under his appointment. And below that, there's the Furtado deed, which definitely ties this Jacob Yehuda Leal, the rabbi, to the marriage ban. year after the marriage, Jacob bought the house on the Korte Houtstraat. And before long, the house was described as the house where the Temple of Solomon hangs outside. In other words, the temple model had become so associated with Rabbi Jacob Yoda Leao that it identified the house itself. And here you see Vlooienburg uh, at number 44, up here near the River Amstel, is his house. It's on the west side of the street, and since this map is upside down, the house is to the right, and it's this large house. I made an enlargement of that, sorry, here. It says there, Vlooienburg. That's the neighborhood. The street is the short wood street, or Korte Houtstraat, and this is the long Wood Street, or the Lange Houtstraat. And the name comes from these little pieces of land which were there for the storage of wood, as you can see on the right up above. So this was a thriving commercial neighborhood with a lot of traffic going on along the Amstel. So when precisely did Jacob Yoda Liao return to Amsterdam? His first mention in any text record is on the 3rd of March in 1645. Since these records were many, they were made a few times a year, so the last time before this date was somewhere end of 1644. He must have come late in 1644 or in the beginning of 1645. And we see two names here, his uncle and he himself, Jacob Juda de Zeelanden, referring to the province of Zeeland where Middelburg is. So he came directly from Middelburg to here. The first time he was assessed for Vinta was on 18th of January 1646, and that meant that he became a Yehid, a member, Vinta paying member, and he's fully integrated into the Amsterdam community. A promesa is a voluntary gift, by the way. Looking at several text lists, 1650, 1655, 1661, 1670, we see again Jacob Juda Leao, the uncle, and his nephew, listed one after the other. The older one first, the rabbi, or it says Ruby here, second. And one thing stands out, he never pays Vinta. I did not check all the text lists in between, but I have a feeling that he never did. He always pays promesa. Perhaps this reflected his status as a teacher, but I know, for instance, that Sol Levi Mortera, the Chacham, in these times, did pay Vinta, so it's unusual. In intermezzo, the family Juda Liao became members of Dotar, and they stayed members of DOTA for over 100 years. It begins with David Israel Nunez, who you might remember as Manuel Lopez Nunez, married to Maria de Leal, sister of Abraham de Leal. So it's when David Israel Nunez died, he gave his membership to his brother-in-law, Abraham de Leal, by last will. I couldn't find that last will, by the way. And Abraham de Leal is succeeded by Jacob Judah Leal in 1662. And you see in the middle the entry of Jacob Judah Leal, and I enlarged his signature for a better look. And you recognize his signature immediately. He is succeeded by his son, Selomo Judah Leal, in 1778, which is 3 years after the death of his father. And then there's a gap. Selomo de Jacob Leal Templo succeeds his grandfather in 1724. The missing link, Jacob, son of Selomo I, was absent in Suriname. Now we come to the difficult period in Jacob's life. First, there's conflict with his son Eliel. Eliel is the son of his first marriage with Sarah. He was born circa 1635. I found his name in the student lists of Ets Haim in 1649, 1650, 1651, and then there's a gap. In 1656, he married Ribka, daughter of Salvador de Leon from Antwerp, possibly a family member, but I don't know. In 1658, he went to Essebuco on a trip that was part of a colonization project. And a few years back, we had Jonathan Swartz talking about this failed colonization project on Sephardic world. So I refer back to that talk of his. But the colonization failed. Some people stayed, others left and went back to Amsterdam. And in 1660, he made a deal with his father. The notarial deed mentions that his mother is Sarah. And then that deed is from November 1660. And Elio states that he wishes to avoid rumors and scandal that could damage his father's reputation. And he agrees to accept only the legitimate portion of his late mother's inheritance. A settlement is brokered. He receives 200 guilders from his mother's inheritance. I would say this is not harmony, it's damage control. But the tensions continue, this time with the daughter of Jacob and Sarah. She married to David Jezerun, and David Jezerun and his wife Abigail Judah Leal accused their father of not keeping his promises. And she brings legal claims. She demands three things. She wants a share in the profit from the temple model, which was exhibited by her father on a regular basis, almost a daily basis, and for which he levied entry fees. She also wants a portion of her mother's inheritance. And she wants the right to live in a room in her father's house, as promised. And David Jesurun formally protests when payment is not made. Jacob, on the other hand, the father, denies all claims and states that everything has already been settled. And the matter is recorded before witnesses. So within 1 year, we see disputes with both son and daughter, financial, domestic, and partly public. And the horror goes on because in 1661, the Muhammad intervenes. They demand that the temple model in Jacob's house is no longer exhibited on Sabbats or on festivals, neither personally nor through others. And the reason given is a scandal. Gentiles entering his home on sacred days. The decision is signed by a member of the Muhammad and formally communicated to him. This is a serious disciplinary warning. And yet, despite all this, he continues publishing. The temple remains his lifelong intellectual project. And here we see a picture of the temple as modeled by Jacob Judah Leal, but set in a Jerusalem context. This is what it was imagined to be the landscape of Jerusalem in that time. And the picture was published in a Hebrew Bible printed by Joseph Atias in 1667. In that same Bible, we see this rendering of the Ark of the Covenant. It's there in the middle, and it's surrounded by a fence. There are lots of animals and lots of action going around, and it's guarded by wagons, almost like in a cowboy film. And to the left, we see artifacts related to the Ark. And you can see here that there are 5 pillars. And if you would enlarge the picture, you would also see vaguely the Ark of the Covenant. And then late in life, at the age of 68, Jacob Judah Leal marries again. And not for the third time, for the fourth time, because this marriage ban says that he is the widow of Rachel Abiathar. And she is a mystery. I can find nothing about her. Nowhere in the archives of the Portuguese Jewish community, nor in the database of Ets Haim or anywhere else is she mentioned except here. And Jacob de Leeuw Jacob de Leeuw, as he is called here, again marries Rachel Furtado from Amsterdam, and she is the daughter of Isaac Furtado. So um, according to age and according to the given name of the father, is definitely not the same Rachel Furtado as the first one. And we see the familiar signature of Jacob de Leeuw, back in 1647. It almost looks like he reserved this signature for marriage bans, but maybe more broadly for use in a non-Jewish environment. And Jacob's profession here is given as schoolmeester, literally schoolmaster, or teacher at an educational institution. And this profession in combination with his signature leaves no doubt that this is our Jacob. And then I have not that much time left, so I will only talk about Elizabeth, the first daughter of Jacob and Rachel Furtado I. And she marries an Abraham Judah Leal from Livorno. And it's interesting to see that here Abraham Judah Leon from Livorno, merchant, 25 years old, living in the short Hood Street, Korthoutstraat, assisted with Jacob Judah Leon, his father, and Elizabeth Judah Leon is the daughter of also Jacob Judah Leon. So here is the third Jacob Judah Leon from Livorno, I think. And if we look at the signatures under the marriage ban, you see their names. Abraham Judah Leon. His wife signs, I believe, is a sign. We see the signature of Jacob Yehuda Leeuw, and again the signature of his wife Rahel de Leon, which is a bit similar to the signature here, except here is a capital R, but both have the same unpracticed style. So in short, the life of Abraham Yehuda there's a prenup in 1671, a marriage ban in 1673, and I don't know why the gap. There's the move to England of Elizabeth with her husband, her mother, and his father. And Rachel Furtado is buried in London. But his father is also buried in London, and that led to confusion among English historians who thought that Rabbi Jacob Yehuda Leal might have died in London and was buried in the Velo. Abraham becomes a teacher, and you find his name multiple times in the records available on Anasao Hebraica. They had three children, Isaac, Rachel, Leah. And I mention him instead of Elizabeth's sister and brother, because of this detail from the prenup. And I'll give you the literal text in English. that the said Mr. Jacob Yehuda Leon and Rachel de Leon, his wife, promise and bind themselves by the present act to give as a dowry with their said daughter Elizabeth to the said future bridegroom, Abraham Yehuda Leon. They also give 1,000 florins in ready cash and a further 300 florins in household goods, and likewise all the works of the Temple of Solomon that they have in their house, together with the said temple itself, all of which is valued at 1,500 guilders in total. So the temple is not just a scholarship, it is also family capital. And this, by the way, is the way the temple ended up in England, the temple model. And this is in the last year of Jacob Yehuda Leon. The end is near, and also the end of my talk is near. And there are some striking things here. First of all, 20 guilders of his salary is paid directly to his daughter Abigail by order of the Mahamat. And I went a few years back. This happened from around 1667, and I think it has to do with the earlier conflict that was settled in this way. Then he receives his normal salary, 94 guilders, for 1/4. And then it says that he receives an advance on the rest of his salary of 120 guilders. And let's look at it more closely. It's para irsa a Londres. Centos y 20 Florence. So he did intend to go to England. But in the years before, he had been paid his full salary, and I don't think the Mahamat would have accepted an absent teacher to receive his full salary. So he had not been to London before. But 6 of Tammuz is the 8th of July, 1675. And only 12 days later, Jacob Yehuda Leon was buried at Ets Haim. So it's impossible that he went to England and came back in time for his burial. Buried the 20th of July of 1675. Jacob did not go to London. He missed the opening of the newly built synagogue in August, and I think he would have awaited that opening and then go to England. Maybe he would have had a chance to deliver a sermon then. And here is the first time that he is called Chacham. But in this context, it only means wise man, not a Chacham paid for by the community. And you also see the name Templo, which he never used himself and which was never mentioned in any source I saw of the time that he was alive. It was given to him after his death. That's in Hebrew poem, and it says, a teacher navigating fragile status, a father in legal conflict with his children, a rabbi disciplined. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the long lines. God's sanctuary was made by Jacob. that refers to his temple of the model, the house with all its vessels and its measurements. May he behold the glory of the Lord under the protection of the Almighty. May he rest in honor forever. That is the public memory, but the archival record shows something more complex. A teacher navigating fragile status, a father in legal conflict with his children, a rabbi disciplined by his community, an entrepreneur turning theology into tangible value, a man whose temple was at once devotion, scholarship, spectacle, and livelihood. The stone names him Chacham, but as we saw, this means learned man. And perhaps his complexity, more than the model itself, is what makes him historically interesting. And then my conclusion. Was Jacob Judah Leao Spanish or Portuguese? He was both. Born Portuguese and lived for some time in Seville, Spain. Rabbi, Chacham, teacher, with maybe a rabbinical role in Hamburg and Middelburg. Born Huarcas or Hamburg? No, born in Bordeaux. Student of UCL? Maybe. Hamburg? Probably, although he only know it from his own words. The move to Amsterdam, late 1644, begin 1645. London? No. Wife? He had 4 wives. Children were known as, in literature, are mentioned as Abigail, Abraham, and Solomon, and they are Elio and Abigail from his first marriage, Elizabeth, Hannah, and Solomon from his second. But no Abraham. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was excellent. And I think a really good reminder that it's terribly easy to confuse people in Sephardic genealogy because so many have the same name. Why Yehuda Leal? Do we know why the Yehuda was adopted?
There were 3 names. Now, there were a few names taken by Jews returning, by conversos returning to Judaism. One is Israel, another is Kohen, yet another is Levi, and another is Yeshurun, which somehow refers to Jerusalem. Israel was, if you didn't know, to which tribe you belonged. And Judah refers to the tribe of Judah. That's it, in short.
Because I wonder whether adopting that name suggests a higher degree of religiosity. I suppose that's just speculation, right?
I think it expresses the will to belong to the nation and is more national than religious.
Do we know if the temple model is referenced in other sources, in sort of diaries or on newspapers and things like that? And also, I'm just curious to know if we know how much he was charging people to see it.
That's a good one. It was a few stivers, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, first of all, Jacob wrote himself about his temple model with explanations and pictures of his temple model, and also about the Ark, uh, and about other stuff. But he also, um, I don't know how you call it, he put the dots in the Mishnah um, under the letters. There's a technical term for that. And it was published
Yeah.
in 1655. So he did serious scholarship. Uh, is also mentioned in newspaper adverts from the time itself, not so much because there were not so many newspapers, but the model lived on, and in the 17th century it was shown in London. It was on permanent display for 5 years after it made its way to London in 1675 or 1676. And after that, it was now and then shown by the descendants of Abraham de Leal and Elizabeth de Leal. And they published in newspaper articles, and um, even one of them even published an English translation of one of the books by Jacob Judah Leal. And if I can share my screen again, mm, here are all the signatures of Jacob and his wives that I could find, plus the one of Jacob from Livorno.
Yeah.
Mm, Here's a Grammatica Hebraica published by his son Solomon. And this is a translation and reprint from 1772 by Moses P. de Castro, Moses Pereira de Castro. And he dedicated his publication to the King of England, perhaps in hopes of receiving generous patronage. This is the title page of that. It's more a brochure than a book.
Yeah.
And it was translated by de Castro himself, prospector of the said model. That means that he was willing to sell it, and a near relation to the author. He is the son of Leah de Leal, and Leah de Leal was a daughter of Abraham de Leal and Elizabeth de Leal. So this is a grandson.
Yeah. I think it says proprietor of the said model.
Proprietor. Oh, sorry, my
So,
eyesight.
so
But
it's changed hands.
he was willing to sell it, and he said
Yeah.
so in adverts at the time, which he published in London newspapers, but also in Dutch newspapers. And the model was for the last time seen in 1772 uh, in Amsterdam and in The Hague.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
so I'm descended from him through the Delavantes and and Henriquez's.
Hello, Richard. Thank you for joining us.
Okay,
And sorry for sending the link so late.
yeah, thank you.
In the chat, we have a couple of questions from Pete. I wonder if this is just due to pronunciation. He's saying that Leao or Leon and Leal with an L are different names with different meanings, lion and loyal. When people are hearing Leal, do you mean Leon or Leão,
Mhm.
Portuguese?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
Portuguese does not have the N on it, but it was added after they
Yeah.
left Portugal.
It was be Spanish.
Thank you.
Thank you. And second question is freedom to move and travel, say around 1590s to Seville and then on to other parts. Was this usual and easily permissible for new Christians?
Um, it was easy to move and travel, but I don't know if they asked for permission. The Portuguese Inquisition became more severe around those times,
Yeah.
late 16th century. And many Portuguese Jews during that time moved to Spain. And in the 1640s, those same Portuguese Jews were threatened in Spain by the Inquisition, and they left for other countries, also for Amsterdam. There's a huge wave, now huge. Dozens of people left Spain for Amsterdam during the 1640s.
Yes.
But I don't know if they had the freedom to move. But I should note that both Portugal and Spain uh, were under the same Spanish crown during that time, from 1580 to, I don't know, 1640, I believe.
Yes. Yes, right. We also have a comment from David Silvera. The early Bevis Marks accounts books have 51 references to Templo from 1676 to 1692. Can you explain?
Well, first of all, each year he is mentioned in a text list. And second, he received a salary as a school teacher. So each year he's mentioned at least twice, and sometimes maybe even more.
And presumably, as he got, I'm not sure if it's the right word, the sobriquet, Templo, it must have made quite a big impression on people.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
It was very popular and even kings came to see it. Uh, so even if the entry fee to the exhibitions was modest, um, if you add it all up, it must have been a nice source of income.
Yes. That's all the questions in the chat. Does anybody else have any questions if you just want to raise your digital hand or unmute yourselves?
Hmm. I must have been very clear.
Well, it was extremely thorough, I have to say. It was very, very helpful. And I'm surprised nobody's tried to make a model of the model, if you see what I mean.
Well, someone did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have.
And end of the 19th century, the Bible Museum in Amsterdam commissioned a private individual, a volunteer, to build a temple model.
I
And
think
he
there's
did,
one.
and he did it on the basis of the model by Jacob Judah Liao. And it still exists. It is still in the possession of the Bible Museum in Amsterdam, but the Bible Museum in Amsterdam does not have a building anymore to exhibit it. They do traveling exhibitions, so maybe you can ask for it to be exhibited in London.
Why
But
not?
it took this individual 4,000 hours to build a model of the model. And if you look at 4,000 hours of work by one person, then I think 1500 guilders at which the temple was evaluated in the prenup for Abraham and Elizabeth, then I think that's, well, uh, underpaid.
Yeah, I think so
I
too.
don't know. Let me think. 4,000 hours, how many? I don't know. But a skilled workman in those days could earn 5 guilders per week, 5 to 10 guilders. So for 4,000 guilders, let's say 10 guilders a week, he had to work 40 weeks.
That's a lot of work, yeah. I think actually there is a model of the temple in a museum in Jerusalem, but I think that's probably more based on the
Well,
archaeology than
there
that one.
were, yeah,
Actually, in Brazil, I think somebody has some Christian group has built a large church that is modeled on the temple
yeah,
as
there
well.
were a lot of models of the temple, also in the 18th century. I don't know how they did compete, but it seems that Isaac Newton knew about both of those,
All right,
and he himself constructed a model of the temple, but only on paper.
that's interesting. Thank you.
Well,
We have, as ever, overextended. If nobody has any further questions that I can see, I would like to thank Ton for extremely useful and interesting talk. We would like to thank our patrons for their support, without whom, of course, this would not be happening. I note that tomorrow is Purim, which celebrates the survival of the Jewish people in the face of a unpleasant Persian who wanted to wipe us out. And won't draw any particular conclusions from that. But thank you, Tom, and thank you, everybody. And we look forward to
Yes,
seeing
thank
you
you.
again in 2 weeks.
Happy Purim, everyone.